Vignettes of DuPont's May Plant. When DuPont built the May Plant in 1949, they were building more than just an industrial plant. They were building a community of DuPonters, of May planters, and, for many, of citizens of Camden. One of the main reasons that DuPont built in this area was because the state, city, and county welcomed them with open arms. On October 6, 1950, Crawford H. Greenwalt, president of E.I. DuPont de Nemours and Company, addressed state and local dignitaries, DuPont associates and employees, and the local community at the dedication of the May Plant.
This is my first visit to Camden, and what I have seen here today makes me quite envious of the May Plant staff. I now fully understand why they were so enthusiastic when they returned from their first investigations. They had much to say at the time about the fine people in your community, about the transportation situation, and the splendid plant site they had found. But it is clear to me now they were thinking more about the creature comforts they would enjoy in living permanently in this delightful environment. After my visit here today, I can't say I blame them for the opportunity to operate a manufacturing plant in so gracious and so picturesque a community is rare indeed. The warmth and cordiality which we have encountered here from the very beginning have been so exceptional that we think of ourselves already as citizens of South Carolina, and I hope that we will prove to be good citizens. On behalf of my associates and myself, I express to you our most sincere appreciation.
In the November-December 1961 issue of Better Living, the DuPont Employee magazine, May Plant manager Leland Jones spoke about the marriage between Camden and DuPont.
Past experience points out a number of problems that are almost certain to arise when a company like DuPont builds a large production unit at a new site. The problems are likely to be most severe in small communities. One is the danger of water or air pollution. Another is the likelihood of overloading local facilities. Schools, highways near the plant, shopping facilities, the housing market, and public utilities. There is also the possibility of resentment among local people if their way of life is suddenly upset, or if new residents in town try to take over control of civic and social organizations. Often businesses already on the scene fear the loss of their better employees or a disruption of local wage scales. When we came to Camden, of course, we moved carefully to minimize all these impacts. We designed the plant carefully to avoid pollution of the river and to prevent fumes from getting into the air. We made clear our intention to pay our fair share of costs for community facilities. The core of our personnel group came here with construction so that they could get to know the town's customs and its people well in advance of hiring an employee force. Members of management visited other employers to explain our policies and practices. We met often with community leaders to learn their problems and expectations. Overcrowding of facilities at first was inevitable. School population in 1949 stood at 3,000. Today, it is 6,400. Available housing was quickly absorbed, and incoming supervision was faced with serious problems of locating suitable residential property. As a result, 30 of our people joined 20 local citizens to develop Kirkover Hills, a suburb now comprising over 160 houses. Over the years, there have been a few upsets. In all such matters, however, we have taken pains to explain things fully to our employees and to the community. As a result, their understanding and acceptance have been all one could ask. One reason for this, I think, is the temperate participation of DuPont people in community affairs. We have always encouraged our people to belong to local organizations wherever they have a natural interest. DuPont people have played leading roles in churches, the PTA, and other civil organizations. They have helped to strengthen the local country club and have helped organize a swimming club. They think of Camden as their home, and like earlier residents, they too want to keep it a fine place to live. When a company like DuPont builds a plant in a community like Camden, The effect is all out of proportion to the number of supervisory people who move in. Between 275 and 300 families came from outside the Camden area. Their numbers added about 1,000 people to the population. But new wage roll and clerical personnel, and eventually locally trained supervision ultimately filled over 1,300 DuPont jobs. Many of these were young people from the town and nearby farms who might otherwise have moved away. And it takes quite a number of service people in a community to take care of the increased needs of plant employment. Last year, this plant contributed over $9 million to the local economy in wages, taxes, and local purchases. This fall, we began our 11th year of producing Orlon acrylic fiber at the May plant. You might say that Camden and DuPont textile fibers have proved themselves well married at this point. I think we can keep it so. The state and community give every evidence of maintaining their friendly attitude towards business organizations, and I know that DuPont and DuPont people will continue to respect their obligations to the community.
In 1970, the plant's employee newspaper, the May Times, printed interviews from 5 longtime employees about their recollections and experience with the DuPont Company and with the May plant in honor of the plant's 20th anniversary. Charles Ballard, Stores.
As I look back to my coming to the May plant 20 years ago, it seems impossible that I have been connected with DuPont for that long. Time has a way of passing so quickly. When I came to work, of course, operations had not begun. Therefore, it was my privilege to see the plant make a beginning in a new place. People hired, people trained, people given a renewed respect for what a large plant can do for the people of a community. DuPont has meant security to me. I came to work here before marriage, and since that time, I have acquired a wife and our children, and this plant has made it possible for me to give my family the material goods that are needed. From the very beginning, DuPont has made me safety conscious. I think that this is one thing that stands out so vividly with my beginning with this company. The medical department and insurance advantages are, in my opinion, the best to be had. I have enjoyed the benefits of that even from the beginning. My association with DuPont has been one in which I have been treated fairly and with every consideration. The plant, the town of Camden, and the outlying communities have come a long way since DuPont saw fit to come to Camden 20 years ago.
Ronnie Buxton, Control Equipment.
As with all new employees, my first contact with the company began when I was interviewed at the temporary employment office in downtown Camden. It quickly became apparent that although we were informal and on a first-name basis, strict adherence to the business at hand was the mark of a DuPonter. After talking for quite some time, the interviewer, who was a production supervisor on special assignment, told me I would be notified in a few days as to my application. I remember saying to a companion as we returned home that even if we didn't get the job, it was a pleasant experience to have such an interview, and it became a standard for myself and an expectation for others. After 20 years, I can say it worked out very well.
Sam Wright, Carpenter Shop.
I didn't have a regular job when DuPont started hiring here. I applied several weeks before, and my first job was in stores, delivering items around the plant. I was glad to get this kind of job because I didn't much like cafeteria work. Everything about my job was new. I had never seen anything like a large plant before. The first person I reported to was Eric Dixon. And I remember him saying something about wearing khaki clothes to work. I never liked khaki clothing. I think I started out at 85 cents an hour. Then I got a raise at 13 weeks and an adjustment. I went from 85 cents to $1.03 in just a few weeks. That was big money at that time. But of course, it's come a long way since then.
Georgia Silcox, medical.
The thing I remember most about my early employment with the DuPont Company was the disaster on New Year's Eve of 1952. I shall never forget how I felt on my way to the plant, visualizing seeing people I knew dead everywhere, and then the great relief on arriving and learning that not anyone was dead or seriously injured.
Olin Thompson, technical.
I began my work with DuPont at the Waynesboro, Virginia location, awaiting the startup of the May Plant facilities. I cannot forget the friendly and helpful attitude of the personnel superintendent, John Hash, as he met us at the Charlottesville, Virginia train station. Later, he took us to the Waynesboro plant site for an informal visit prior to taking us to the private homes where we were cordially received and lived for over a month. The effort and resources that the company expends daily for the safety of its employees in my 20-year career has been most impressionable. The medical facilities provided on location and its competent and friendly personnel are part of this.
In 2019, Camden's mayor, Alfred May Drakeford, spoke about her experience with DuPont's May Plant.
In 1968, I was hired at DuPont. I was happy to be there. After graduating high school, could not afford to go to college. Ended up going to cosmetology school. Worked in the industry for 5 years, and at that time, DuPont was hiring as they opened the nylon side of the plant. Was hired April of 1968. And to my surprise, when I went to orientation the first day, I was asked, "What are you doing here? We are only hiring men at this time." Well, it was 38 fellas, and I was it. So I guess the name Alfred kind of threw him off. I had to use my middle initial make name, B for Briggs, and Drakeford. So here stood Alfred B. Drakeford, not a male, but a female. So it was a good laugh that day. They made me sit in the front of the class to make sure that they didn't tell any off-color jokes the way they normally did when it was just an all-male class. I was hired as a wage roll employee in 1972. I was out spinning. As a matter of fact, I think I was tubing, and I was not good at that job. Every time one of my supervisors came down, all of my tubes would be down, and they would be helping me pick them up, and I really felt bad. But later on, went on back out into the inspection area, and we were working graveyard, and my supervisor came to me. He said, "Alfred May, you are being promoted." I said, "What?" So I'm working 12 to 8 shift on a Friday morning, and on Monday, I was to come back as a supervisor. So on Monday morning, I came in, and I am now a first-line supervisor. And I said, okay, what have I gotten myself into? So I was the first African-American female to be promoted from the wage roll into supervision. And I wanted to say no after a few months that, you know what? I really don't want to do this. Because first of all, I was taken out of my environment at the time blacks kind of stayed together, whites stayed together. So I was taken out of my environment and I was thrown into an environment with all white males. And a lot of those white males didn't really want me there. That was their world, as I was told on one occasion, and I did not belong there. It was hard, but I accepted the challenge because I knew if I said, no, I'm not going to do this, then it would make it hard for the next person coming behind me. So I always had great crews. Great crews. They really worked hard for me. And the good part about that, I was out there with them a lot of the times. And as supervisors, we were not supposed to be out there doing the work that our operators did. But as I was saying a little earlier, I always had great crews. And I can remember every parameter that were being measured at the time. My crew they were number one. I mean, you couldn't beat them anywhere. I said to my boss one day, I just don't understand why I'm not being promoted to second line supervisor when others are. And he said to me, well, Alfred May, we are only promoting people with college degrees. And as I looked around, I knew that wasn't quite the story. So I said, okay, I'll go get one. I'll get that degree. So that was a challenge for me. And I'm telling you, it was not easy, but I did it. But thanks to DuPont, we had tuition refund. They paid for my education. And it had not been for DuPont, I probably would not have attended the University of South Carolina. In September, I was actually promoted to second line supervisor. Went on from there to training and development, quality assurance. It was a great career, and I took an early retirement in 2001. That was my life with DuPont. And as I looked around, not only for me, I know DuPont affected the lives of many, many, many people here in Camden. And it had not been for them, where would I be? Where would some of those folk be? It's hard to say where we might have been. But the only thing that I can say is that I was good for DuPont. DuPont was good for me, and I just thank them for being here.